how do you stay strong in that time? Because I get that too. Like my wife and I end up spending a bit of time apart every year as well because her family, both of our families are from London and they live in London, and our niece and nephew are there, our sisters are there. So my wife misses family a lot, and
Right.
her family's like her like fuel.
Right.
And so we end up spending quite a few months apart every year. And I wonder, how do you stay strong? How do you kind of like, what do you work on to make sure that you're filled up as well? Because like you said, it's a sacrifice, but at the same time, you have to be the one to
I'm
take
looking for tips and advice every day. I'm telling you, it's so hard. And I tell you, I think the biggest thing that I try to do is make sure that I'm not too emotional in front of my kids, right? Because my kids are special. Like my son is so like thoughtful, and my daughter is the same way, and it's so different, right? My childhood was, my dad was the coach and all that. My mom was a team mom, so my parents never missed anything. I think probably one of the coolest interactions was we played in LA maybe like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And my family came to the game and my kids were standing outside the locker room. And I had no clue they did this, but when a few of my teammates left, they saw my daughter and they was like, Cam, we be watching your baseball games. We be watching your basketball games because I can't be there. I'll literally be in the locker room before a game. My iPad is set up. My wife is videoing the game and I'm doing my stretches and exercises before the game. And anybody that's in the locker room, they can hear my daughter's game going on. So to see, my wife told me how much my daughter, like she just lit up knowing, that I'm not there physically, but I'm always, at least watching and trying to when I can.
I feel like kids feel that presence. I always felt like my parents didn't have a lot of time for me. They were both immigrants working hard, trying to put food on the table, but I always felt their presence because when I was with them or when they did see me, there was a real connection there.
Yeah.
And I didn't need like 8 hours a day, 10 hours. I didn't have that luxury. They didn't have that luxury. But even if it was for those couple of hours every day.
I say that all the time, man. I'm so aware and conscious that like kids, my kids now 13 and 10. They're very smart. They're very aware that if you was to get them a gift, say you're a big time person or something, you get them a gift and somebody that works for you got them the gift, your kids, you can't fool them, but they would much rather have that time. So when I'm in town or whatnot, if I get a day off and I go home, the best time for me is taking my kids to school, right? That 20, 25-minute drive to school, and then even the fact that my daughter still lets me walk her in, those I think are the most priceless moments, because one thing that I learned during quarantine was that was the first year that I lived away from my family, right? I was in Oklahoma, and then the shutdown happened and we all went home for a while. And it was just crazy because even though my kids might be doing their own thing, they felt comfort. And I was like on Zoom trying to set up the bubble, right? Because I was the union president at the time. But they felt comfort in doing their own thing, but they knew if they looked out the side of their eye that they could see me in my office, right? So just the awareness. You might not necessarily be right there next to them all the time, but just the fact that they know you're there.
Yeah, well said.